Hey, badass black girls, and they making big moves. Hey, badass black girls, nothing that you can't do. They are the future, I'm trying to tell ya. They want the best, no time to settle. They got the strength to handle the pressure. These are the queens, nobody better. Yeah, changing the narrative, that is imperative. They about to rock this. Tell the women that you got this. Got no time for people who are toxic. It's all love, good vibes. You know I got your back, girl. Talking issues that matter. This is badass black girl, yeah.
Welcome to a new episode of Badass Black Girl. My name is MJ Fievre, and today we have a very special guest. Nadia Stanley is with us. Hi, Nadia.
Hi, MJ. Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here. Nadia, would you introduce yourself for those who don't know you?
Sure. I'm Nadia Stanley, and some people call me Stanley. So either one is great. And I just have a varied past in terms of everyone always asks, where are you from? And that's such a loaded question, right? Because it's like, where was I born? I was born in England. Where was I raised? I was raised in Massachusetts in the United States, but I consider myself Jamaican because my parents are both Jamaican and I lived there before I lived in LA where I live now. And so I'm kind of mixed up of all sorts of different cultures. And my profession, I'm a TV producer by trade. So I probably produce, I can't even think about how many different TV shows, some that you guys might know. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Shaw's of Sunset, MJ on Bravo, or Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay.
I am. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And my recent passions have more been about moving the needle forward in different areas, and especially Black consciousness is a very big part of who I am, and Black empowerment and Black excellence. And I do very different things right now, pushing that forward. And one of those, I guess, is a book I wrote, because I think Black love is something that sometimes struggles in our generation. And I wrote a passion project, a book called I Know Why You're Single, Sis. I would not have chosen this topic if I really sat down and thought I want to write a book. It was just an inspiration that came out on paper. So it was at a time when I was transitioning out of TV production full time, because my hours were sometimes 20-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week. And I was just burnt out. I needed a break. And I was kind of delving into my spirituality and aligning with kind of like where God wanted me to go, and just listening to that inner voice. And it was in that time that I literally, I guess I'm a Virgo. And so I'm not sure if you're that familiar with Virgos, but we like to speak our mind and our truths and get straight to the point.
Yes, my sister is a Virgo.
Okay, so MJ, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of the best qualities about me, and maybe the worst, is that I'm brutally honest. And the book is just a reflection of who I am, and some of the advice that my friends have told me that is great advice. I'm definitely, friendship is huge in my life. And I realized that a lot of my friends tend to be single. So they're very intelligent, very great, wholesome women, and there's a disconnect with a certain segment of I think women that are looking for men and are kind of just tired of being single. And I was kind of always just that voice of reason, giving them a different perspective. And one of my friends was like, "You should just write a book." And I was like, "I should write a book." And I literally just wrote this. So I didn't really sit down and choose this topic, but it was just something that I naturally talk to my friends about all the time.
Black love. What is so hard about this? Tell me, what do you find that Black women struggle the most with when it comes to dating and relationships?
Yeah, I think there's layers of why some Black women tend to struggle in terms of the system itself. I think is somewhat designed to keep Black couples apart, in terms of a lot of people talk about whether the incentives and the welfare system and unfortunately, Black men are targeted in terms of incarcerated more than any other race, and not necessarily proportionate to the crimes that they're given. And there's all sorts of different outside reasons why the Black man is kind of away from the family. And then I think also too, in my generation, women in general were being empowered to be independent and not being just an appendage to a man, which is a beautiful thing. I think women empowerment is the first and foremost thing that we should be focused on. But sometimes if you go a little bit too overboard with it, then you raise a generation of women like myself that was taught kind of, you don't need a man. Focus on your education or focus on your career. And it was so, the pendulum swung so much that way that I think that was the focus for a lot of women. And it was maybe seen as weak even to aspire to be a housewife or aspire to be, and sometimes there needs to be a balance, right? And I think there's so many layers. And I think in our generation, we're kind of maybe a hip hop culture and different music that guides us on how we're supposed to act. And a lot of the things that are cool is not really conducive for healthy relationships. And so there's just so many things that are kind of stacked against us in coupling up and being in healthy relationships, if that's what we want.
Is it available on Amazon?
I haven't put it up on Amazon yet. It's mainly on our website, www.iknowwhybooks.com, and that's books with an S. And yeah, that's where they can find it. And it's ebook as well as a physical copy if they want it.
So you guys heard Nadia. Visit the website and get the book. You will get a lot of pearls of wisdom there. So I'm encouraging all of you guys to go and visit. Nadia, let's go back to your journey. Such an interesting journey from a producer to author. I'm really interested in knowing how you became a producer in the first place. When did you know that's what you wanted to do? Did you just stumble upon an opportunity and then made it a career? How did that go?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's kind of both. In terms of, I've always been obsessed with TV. In terms of, like, some people grew up listening to music. I was more, the second I was done with my homework, TV, TV, TV. And I grew up in the reality TV age where the Survivors were on, and the Real House and all sorts of different things. And so I didn't know it at that time, but I was almost priming myself to be a reality TV producer and things like that. I was almost an expert in terms of a viewer. So that's kind of where my first, like, entertainment bug came, as on the other side viewing it, right? And then in college, I think it was, when I was really analyzing, okay, what do I want to do in this world? I knew I was a creative. So I knew it was going to be in some type of creative realm, but it was really just a coincidence that I got an internship at a local TV station in Boston. And the second I started working there, I kind of knew, okay, this is it. And before that, it was fashion. That was where I thought I wanted to express my creativity. And I was a manager of a department store, hoping to be a buyer. And it was just a horrible experience. And I left that job and I got the internship in TV. And it's probably been about 15 years in this industry thus far.
You mentioned earlier a time in your life when you were so overworked and just very busy. How did you manage to get your life back? What are some strategies that you employ that we can implement in our lives just to make things better in terms of workload?
Yeah, you have to listen to yourself. And I think that's the hardest thing to do sometimes, because we have so many pressures on ourselves in terms of, I left a job before I had a job, which is not necessarily the norm or desired, but sometimes you have to walk on faith. And it worked out for me. So I think the number one thing is to listen to yourself. You know when you're about to burn out or you're burning out, and there's nothing wrong with taking that time. I think, and to not be hard on ourselves and put so much like outside pressure. I think that's kind of the number one thing that people really need to do, is listen to themselves, and self-care. So there's nothing wrong in this busy world, and sometimes, especially we as women, are taking care of everyone else, to just take care of yourself and know that, okay, I need a minute, I need to regroup. And that's what I did. I just took that time off. I rested, and then you're able to kind of calm all that outside noise and really center yourself and see. And then anyone who is kind of, doesn't necessarily have to be religious, but I'm a spiritual person, whatever that religion is for you. I think that's important too. And that really helped me, and to ground myself to something like faith. And that kind of helped me see where I wanted to go and guide me.
I like that you mentioned how true that is, um, for women particularly, the importance of taking care of ourselves, making sure that our we pace ourselves as we take care of the to-do list, as we take care of other people, because um, particularly because Black women tend to be seen as strong and not as vulnerable as other people, we tend to try to live up to that standard, right? And very often we find ourselves being overworked. And I think that it's important for Black girls and Black women to realize that sometimes you have to slow down and just have some me time, and that will allow you to become even better at what you do, actually.
Exactly. Sometimes you even have to take 2 steps back in order to take 10 steps forward. And just like you said, there's so many things also too that are stacked up against Black women, in terms of even the pay disparity and different things. So sometimes I think we feel we have to try 10 times as hard to get to the same places. And just like you said, that can cause you to burn out in so many different ways, where I think mental health is something that in our community that needs to be addressed more. And for that same reason, we're just taught to kind of be strong. You're feeling down, just brush it off. And it's like, no, you need that time to really internalize how you're feeling, take a break if you need to. And that I'm not sure if it's a stigma, or that pressure needs to be alleviated off of Black women.
Definitely. Speaking of workload, I'm trying to imagine your life as a producer. Would you walk us through it? Tell us about a typical day. What do you do on a typical day?
Yeah, so it depends. So normally, like a show, like a reality show, like Hell's Kitchen, is probably about a 3 to 6 month time span where you're locked into one show. And at the beginning, it can be somewhat manageable in terms of going into work at maybe say 8 a.m., leaving at about 8 p.m. But when it starts to get hectic is the closer you're coming up to actual shoot days. And shoot days start at about 5 a.m. typically. And on that show, I was working from 5 a.m., leaving set at probably about 2 a.m. The set was probably about 2 hours away from my house. So do you see how the math doesn't even necessarily add up
I don't know.
to be able to get back to work? So it can be extremely stressful. And the typical day, because sometimes people don't realize producers are just kind of managers, right? We're just making sure all the moving pieces, the crew is getting what they need, from props to, you're just making sure everything comes together. But the stressful part is you're on such a tight deadline, because if your camera crew is rented for 12 hours and you need, you know what I'm saying? And so it can just be a lot of different things. You have to be able to multitask and handle yourself under pressure. And it is something, it's a great profession, and a lot of different people, especially younger people, I mentor on how to get into the industry. But it's something that I try to tell people, do it if you're passionate about it. It's not the glitz and glam that some people might think it is. It's a lot of hard work.
It's hard work, yes. What is your favorite part about it?
My favorite part is the final product and what I see that can do for people's lives. So their music is one of them, but also to TV and film can really shape people's experiences. We forget how much of an impact that has on how people are feeling, whether you're happy, you know what I'm saying, and you like to watch comedy, or I love actual reality TV, even though reality TV has a negative stigma. I watch it because you're kind of getting a glimpse into someone's life, someone that you might not normally get to meet. Um, and so even like Shaws of Sunset, I learned about a lot about Persian culture by working on that show and watching that show. And by no means does it say that every Persian person is like the people on TV. No, not at all. But I saw like cultural norms, and I loved seeing how they always brought a gift to someone's house. And that's a part of their culture, and different things. So I kind of love just the hearing people talk about the final product and how, it's affected them.
Do you remember which show was the first one you saw? Which reality show was your very first?
Hmm, that is a great question. Very first, I know Real House was like a big impact, but I'm not sure if it was my first. I'd have to really sit and think about that. I want to say Survivor, but I know it's not Survivor. I think it's just because Survivor is deemed as one of the first reality shows. It's stuck in my mind.
Mhm.
But I I used to watch The Simple Life, which I think Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie had a
Okay.
show where they were kind of fish out of water scenarios. I think that could have been one of the first ones that I kind of really got into. And I just thought that was just so unique.
I've never watched it. I think my first one was actually Flavor of Love.
Okay.
So I kind of got later in the game, but and I never took reality TV seriously. Um, then I started watching this, and I just couldn't stop. I found myself just hours later because it was just streaming, I guess. No, it was before I had streaming. I guess they were just having a marathon.
Marathon,
And
yeah.
I found myself 3 hours later still watching. And I'm like, what is this? Why am I watching
Why
this?
are you watching?
But it was just pure entertainment.
And that's the thing. And I think people forget how much that you need a release. Sometimes you don't need to be educated. Sometimes you don't need to be challenged or inspired. Sometimes you just need baseline entertainment so you
Right.
can almost shut out all the things that you have to think about. And I think reality TV serves that purpose. And just like you, it's addictive. And there's so many different realms. Like I love HGTV. I love interior design and different things, and that's an area of reality too.
Is a show like American Idol considered reality TV as well?
Hmm. Yeah, anything that's they kind of call it unscripted now. So there's scripted television and unscripted. So um all the popular scripted shows that we watch, whether it's Empire or whether it's Game of Thrones, but anything in the unscripted world, even cooking shows are unscripted, and um all the boys, yeah, there's a big realm. Even game shows are technically unscripted reality TV.
And where do you live right now,
Los
Nadia?
Angeles.
Um, would you say that is the best place to be if someone who wants to become a producer, or are there other
Mm.
options? I'm
There's
thinking about a career like writing, for instance. People always said, well, if you want to become a TV writer, you have to be in New York or in LA, which is, I guess, very true because that's where most TV happenings take place, right? So,
right.
what about being a producer?
Yeah, I think two things. I think it is a great place to be a TV producer just because the amount of opportunities here are probably way more than if you lived in a remote part of, let's say, the US. So absolutely. But I do say there's a benefit of starting your crafts somewhere else and then coming to LA with experience. I think what people forget about is the amount of competition that there is here because everyone is coming here, let's say, either to be on TV or to work in TV, in the industry. And so you want to kind of have something that sets you apart by the time you get here. And I think that will be a way easier transition than starting from the ground up in a place where there's just so many other people that might be more experienced than you. And I think there's nothing wrong with doing TV wherever you are. So, I tell people if you're living in Idaho, there must be some form of television, whether it's local TV and things like that, and get your start there. And you can have great careers outside of major cities.
That's very good advice, particularly now that everyone has been forced to live a huge part of their existence online. I'm assuming that a lot of opportunities are available now to kind of work from where you are and still get the exposure. Is that true?
Yeah, and I think work from where you are, but then it's also outside of the country right now, has a lot more opportunities because even a lot of local LA shows moves to different regions that didn't have a COVID-19 issue like we had at one point. I know production is starting back up in LA, but we're pretty much still just coming out of lockdown for a year. So it gave the opportunity for also to people to create their own content. YouTube is, you can make a living off of YouTube, and so I think it has created different um, opportunities that we didn't foresee before. Kind of just have to make it work.
You mentioned earlier how to get your book. I know why you're single, so people can visit iknowwhybooks.com. But what are some other ways that they can get in touch with you, stay in touch with you, follow you? Let's share all that good info so that people can follow your career.
Okay, great. Yeah. On Instagram, it's I know why books with an S. And then my personal Instagram is your girl Stanley, YOUR girl Stanley. And that's mainly where I live is Instagram. We also have a Facebook page, which is I know why books. But Instagram is the main focus, or on the website. I correspond with people because people have all sorts of different questions about TV production, about book, I know why you're single, and as well about being an author themselves. So I love to give advice if I have advice to give. So definitely reach out to me.
Absolutely read the book. If you're watching this, visit iknowwhybooks.com, follow Nadia on social media, and I'm hoping, Nadia, you'll come back at some later time to visit us again and continue that fruitful conversation about
And
everything.
anytime, MJ, anytime. I'd love to talk to you.
Well, until next time then.